Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 4-3 show. I'm your host, Ryan Blank. I'm alongside Parker Dunn, Pat Fortuna, and Dominic Stern. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Doing all
I'm
right?
tired, but I'm here. I'm ready to talk sports.
I'm wonderful. I am full of energy. Great day. For those of you who know me, know I collect Funko Pops. I reached my 99th Funko Pop today. Looking to make a big investment on the 100th. But that put me in a really good mood. I reorganized all of mine tonight. I'm full of energy, man. I'm full of energy.
Do you have any targets for your 100th one, Pat?
My 100th Funko Pop, I'm looking at the original Homer Simpson. I'd have to sell a couple spares that I have, but the original Homer Simpson goes anywhere in the ballpark of $500 to $650. So, yeah, I can break even and or make profit on that, so I'll be fine. But
okay, that's
we'll
good.
see. We'll see.
Parker, what's it like being the only one who's in Arizona right now, as the rest of us are in our respective homes?
It's pretty chill. Just doing my thing. I vibed last year. I was actually very sick last year, Thanksgiving, so that was not enjoyable. So the fact that I'm feeling pretty healthy now makes it a lot better. So I'll be home pretty soon. I'm kind of just hanging in there and finishing strong.
Do you think you had COVID before COVID was the thing?
No, I do not believe I did. I think that all of Taylor Place would have went into full-blown disaster mode had I had that.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, let's get into it. Tonight is probably going to be the most loaded show we've ever had. So let's get into it. Let's start with NCAA basketball. Season starts tomorrow.
Let's go.
Who are our top teams for this season? And Dom, I know you have your college basketball show, so go ahead and start.
Yes, if you want my full thoughts on college basketball, you need to go listen to the College Basketball Bonanza. Me and Nicholas Hodel, we do a great job. We previewed every single conference, talked about every single team, so you want to go over and check that out. My national contender favorite is going to be the Villanova Wildcats. Returning star point guard Connor Gillespie, along with Michael Earl Robinson. Those guys are going to be a dynamic guard and forward duo. Another team to watch out for, the Baylor Bears. They're returning just about everyone from last year. They're going to be another stellar defensive team like they were last year. I don't think Kansas is going to be as good as last year, so maybe they'll have an easier path to the Big 12. And then, of course, the contender every single year, the Gonzaga Bulldogs out in the Northwest. Joel Ajayi is going to carry that team. He might be my pick for the Naismith Player of the Year. Those are three teams that I'm looking out for as teams that I think can win it all. Don't sleep on UVA either.
Yeah, I'm going to put it out there right now. Not a huge college basketball guy. I think we know that about me. I love March Madness. I enjoy getting really into college basketball in late February because what better time to do it than then? I don't know a ton about going into the season. I didn't get my hopes up too much for this season because I wasn't sure that there was going to be one. And right now things are looking a little rocky for that, but we can get into that later. Top teams. I really like looking at Baylor, just because simply for the fact that they're Baylor and their great run was cut short last year with no March Madness. So I think they're back. They didn't really graduate anyone, did that? Yeah, so they should still be a powerful team as they were last year. So that's going to be my favorite for now. But you can never count out, like Dom was saying, Villanova, Gonzaga. And growing up, if I had a team, it was UVA. So don't ask me why. I really wanted to go to UVA when I was younger. And then my grades got bad and I knew I'd never get in. But yeah, that's go Cavs. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same blue blood teams, a lot of teams that we've seen in the past, just looking back to last year. I don't want to sound like a broken record and kind of repeat a lot of the teams. But as far as my pick, a team that I always know is relatively reliable is Gonzaga. I like what Mark Few's done for that program. It seems like year in, year out, they bring in not just a lot of talent, but they also bring in a lot of experience. I value upperclassmen a lot. I feel like that goes a long way. Getting guys that have tournament experience or just postseason basketball experience, whether they get them from one team or another, they're bringing in a group of guys that can work very well together. They've got 4 players on the Naismith watch list. There's a ton of talent on that team. You just go down the line from the rankings that they've released. A lot of these teams, like Baylor, another team with a lot of experience, I feel like that's going to be a common denominator in a very interesting season with all that's going on with COVID and just the uncertainty. So I feel like that experience is going to pay dividend in ways it never has before.
Yeah, this year I'm extremely high on Gonzaga. I think this could be Gonzaga's year. This is a very good basketball team. Have a lot of experience. I really like how they're trending this year. Honestly, KU has a run for its money heavily with Baylor in the Big 12. I think that's going to be a great battle throughout the entire season. KU lost some big players in Azubuike and Dotson, but they've got a very guard-heavy team, which you're seeing some teams are very guard-heavy, but let's see what KU does. They're always going to be competitive. They got one of the best head coaches. Then you got to look at Jay Wright and Villanova, a team that ASU could end up facing in the next couple of days. And no matter the talent, the recruits, or what they have, they always are up there and always one of the best teams. They've got Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who actually went to one of the high schools that my high school faced in basketball. He's a beast. He's extremely, extremely talented. He's going to be a big piece of that team. So I'm excited for a lot of these teams this year, but I really like Gonzaga this year. Now let's flip it. Top players. Each of us give one or two players that we're really excited to see this year.
I'm going to start off in the Big Ten. Many of you are going to think I'm going to go to Luka Garza, and Luka Garza is a beast. But I'm actually going to go to Illinois, the Fighting Illini. And I'm going to go with Ayo Dosunmu. Ayo was a guard that really burst onto the scene last year. Can drive, can shoot the three. He led that team, and this year they're bringing just about everyone back. I think he's going to lead Illinois to a very deep tournament run. He's going to carry Illinois to a possible Big Ten title this year. They're going to have stiff competition with both Wisconsin and Iowa, who, of course, Luka Garza plays for. But I think Ayo can average north of 20 points, couple assists per game, 4 or 5 rebounds per game, because that's the guy he is. And him and Kofi Cockburn are going to be arguably the best duo in the nation. And I'm going to ride with Ayo Dosunmu to be my National Player of the Year.
I won't lie to any of you. I know nothing about college basketball players if you're discounting ASU. I could talk all about ASU if anybody wants.
Just say Remy Martin. Remy Martin. The best odds, yeah.
Right, yeah. Remy Martin, here we go. You could have gone to the NBA last year. You said, nah, I'm not going to do it. We got Joshua Christopher. I'm going to stick around. He did it. Here we go. They're going to make it to the Elite Eight this year. Let's go. That's my bold prediction for the year right there. Not that bold, but that's my prediction right there for the year. Let's go Sun Devils.
Yeah, for accept. Well, for mine, I am going to go to Luka Garza. He's a guy that was in the running last year. He put some incredible numbers up for Iowa. Iowa's a team that's expected to be very good this season, and he's going to have to put up very similar numbers to live up to those expectations and to make a deep run. So I do think that he should be thrown into there as far as experienced players based on what we know we're getting. And if we're going to go on incoming freshmen, Cade Cunningham, of course, is one of those to come sign. Greg Brown, the third's another. There's a lot of young, talented players, but Cade has to be thrown around there. You look at all these NBA mock drafts, just from the talent perspective, of course, he's one of those guys that's probably going to be a one and done. I expect him to do some great things at Oklahoma State. And he's on a team where there's not an abundance of talent around him like some of these other top guys. So I expect him to be kind of similar to that Anthony Edwards, where he has a chance to shine. The efficiency might not be great because he's going to have to do so much in order for his team to win games. But I expect him to put up some monster numbers, and he's going to be one of the more exciting players to watch without a doubt.
Yeah. There's one guy that I really like is a Villanova guy, Connor Gillespie. Averaged just over 15 points last year. I really like what he can bring and what he's going to bring to that team. Of course, you got to look at Jared Butler. He was a great player for Baylor last year and a big piece on why they just really broke out and became one of those top teams. So I really like them. I have to say it. Marcus Garrett up there. Marcus Garrett really he doesn't bring as much value offensively as he does defensively. Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, National Defensive Player of the Year, very great defender, and he's really starting to get going offensively, driving the hoop, so I really like him as well. But there's a ton of good talent. I'm excited to see what some of the freshmen do and what some of those guys in like the Big Ten. When also thinking about someone like Jace Trax, wow, I botched that name really bad. Oh gosh, Trace Jackson Davis of Indiana.
Try again, buddy. Come on.
Yeah, Trace Jackson Davis of Indiana. Really good player. I've been hearing a lot about him from my brother, but he's a really good player. I got to watch him last year when they faced Wisconsin. He was really good. So there's a bunch of players to watch out for. But Dom, it looks like you've already given your predictions for your championship winner and Naismith Player of the Year, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Villanova.
Pat, do you have anyone
For a player,
for player and or national champion?
I can't pretend to be an expert in anything. It's something I don't know much about at all. But I'll give a. Also, guys, I'm here for the professional sport aspect. Anybody who's listening to the show thinking I'm a college sport fan is simply fooling themselves.
Just
No,
say Arizona State and go off.
Arizona State. Let's go. I'm not going to take any more airtime.
Parker, you got anyone?
I guess I sort of implied, but it could have been vague based on multiple names being thrown out there. I would go with Luka Garza if I had to pick right now for my Naismith player to watch out for. And if I had to pick a team, I think I put a little bit too much trust in Gonzaga year in, year out, but I feel like they just give me so many reasons to. So I'm going to stick with them in a very interesting season.
Yeah, my team to win it all this year is Gonzaga. I'm very high on them. Mark Few is one of the best coaches, so I think Gonzaga is going to be extremely good this year. My Naismith Player of the Year, I'm actually going to go with Jared Butler from Baylor. I think he's going to have a great year, and I think he's going to be a big piece of why Baylor's going to be really one of those top dogs in the Big 12 and in the country. But, of course, it's 2020. COVID-19 has come and also hit NCAA basketball with Baylor head coach Scott Drew testing positive for COVID-19. The top 25 matchup with ASU that was supposed to be tomorrow night has been called off as the Bears have dropped out of the Empire Classic. What do you guys think this could do potentially for all of college basketball?
Well, first of all, I want to say, because this is something I do know about. First of all, good on ASU, because it wasn't that the Bears pulled out first. ASU said they would not play Baylor with these positive tests. So good on ASU doing the right thing, putting the health and safety of their players above playing basketball. Second of all, it's going to be really hard to watch college sports happen this year. And that's simply for the fact that you're playing on a bigger team. You're interacting with a lot more people. Professional sports players, their only job is to play the sport. In college, these people are students. They have families that they're going home to. They have faculty. They have a ton of staff and a bunch more players that they're interacting with. So you're rolling the dice a lot harder when you're looking at college sports. So it's going to be a lot harder to make them work than it is professional sports this year. And you're going to really have to find a way to make it work, because if you're going to have issues like this all year where big teams like Baylor are pulling out of the Empire Classic, it's not a good look. And it's going to continue to be a horrible look throughout the season until they figure something out.
Right, and I've said this time and time again. I don't need to really repeat it that much more. College sports are not meant to be played in a college pandemic, and that's for the reasons that Pat mentioned. And this isn't like football where you might be able to get away with a player playing on the field while he tested positive or while he has the virus, but he hasn't tested positive yet because, as we know, it does take a little bit to incubate in the body before it shows up in test results. But studies have also shown that it is significantly tougher to contract the virus while you're outside. Now, with that being said, don't be an idiot while you're outside. But now basketball, of course, is a sport that's played indoors. So if a player is on the court and he has the virus, all of a sudden the players are so much more prone to getting it in basketball than they are in football. So like Pat mentioned, this is good on ASU to just, say, hey, we're not going to do this. Now, to my knowledge, no Baylor players tested positive. It was just head coach Scott Drew. But still.
It was Scott Drew and a couple staff members. There were no players.
Right. So, I mean, this game could have still been played with the players, but at that point, Baylor is under a significant disadvantage coming into the game because they don't have the coaches. So, this is what college basketball season is going to be like the entire year. this is certainly not the last time we're going to be seeing this instance of a team pulling out. You just got to hope that they figure stuff out better come conference play time, because that's when the cancellations really become key.
Yeah, there's not too much for me to add. You guys seem to hit all the major points. There's a lot to get to this episode too, and I really feel like there's not really too much for me to add. So I'm just going to leave it at that for my portion of, I guess, this topic.
Yeah, you two and Pat and Dom hit it right on the head. Like, this is something that you're going to have to really experience. And since this is a sport that's condensed inside, this is a sport that you're definitely not going to see fans in my opinion. And that's really going to hurt some teams. Like in Allen Fieldhouse, it's the fans that bring that competitive edge to the Jayhawks, and they're not having fans at all this season. So there's going to be those effects. But you guys hit it right on the head. That's really how it's going to have to be, is that you're going to have to be extremely careful. And Dom, you've said it all throughout, and you're right. College sports aren't built to be playing in the mix of a pandemic. But before we move on to a couple matchups this week, Tennessee Volunteers head coach Rick Barnes also tested positive. We don't have to say anything about that because we've already covered the bases of COVID. But let's get into two games this week. Thursday night, number 1 Gonzaga faces off against number 6 Kansas. Who do we think's winning this game?
I like Gonzaga here. Like we've already mentioned, Gonzaga is returning more players than Kansas is. Kansas lost their 2 best players from last year. I don't want to say this is an easy pick. These games in the beginning of the year are always weird with limited playing time already, and then now this year limited practice time, but I'll take the Bulldogs.
Hey Siri, flip a coin.
I love that.
Give me Kansas.
That's great. First of all, that's awesome. That should definitely go on Twitter. But I'm gonna take Gonzaga as well. I like the brand of basketball they play under Phil. This is a team that looks to start off strong in a non-conference matchup, and they're a team that gets doubted by a lot of people based on their strength of schedule playing the West Coast Conference. I think they cherish the chance to play these kind of games against big teams with the likes of KU. I like them in this game. Should be a very good one.
Let me make it clear real quick before you go, Ryan. Come March Madness, this isn't how I make my brackets. Like, come March Madness, I actually do some research, and in January, February, I start watching college basketball. But at this point, I just got too much going on.
Yeah, for me, being the Kansas fan, I'm actually going to go with Gonzaga. I think it should be a terrific game, a very close game. But I think Kansas has the issue of really having to reassert itself and finding its identity without having Azubuike and Dotson, because those 2 guys were key pieces of that team last year. And yeah, they have Marcus Garrett, who is going to be big for them. They're going to have Ochai Agbaji coming back, Jalen Wilson, who got hurt last year, David McCormack, and Christian Brown. There's a ton of guys, ton of talent there. But those are 2 big guys who were key pieces of that team for multiple years. So I think they're going to have to really establish themselves, and I think this first game against Gonzaga is really going to start that process. Dom, do you have anything? You unmuted yourself. Okay.
No, I was just kidding.
Second game is Sunday. Number 14, Texas Tech battles number 17, Houston. Who do we got?
I'm actually going to take Houston here. I think Texas Tech is a little bit overrated. Lost arguably their best players from last year, David Moretti and Jamias Ramsey. And, they are bringing in Mac McClung from Georgetown. But McClung, he wasn't a great player over at Georgetown, and I think a lot of people are putting a little bit too much value in on him coming in to Texas Tech now. Texas Tech is going to be a good team this year. They're going to be at the top, towards the top of the Big 12, but I think Houston is a very well-rounded team. They got one of the best coaches in the country, Kevin Sampson, and I think they're going to win the American Conference. I will take Houston to start off strong the year with their win over Texas Tech.
All right, Texas Tech is going to be heads, okay? Siri, flip a coin. Give me Houston in this one.
Okay, well, let's make it 3. I'm also going to take Houston. I do like the acquisition of Mac McClung. I know, Ethan, if you're still watching this, I know that you would agree with that. That's your guy right there. And I think Texas Tech is going to be a very good team. Where they shape out in the Big 12, I'm not sure. It's such a good conference when it comes to basketball. So I don't know where exactly they're going to fall when it comes to that, when it comes down to making it into the tournament and what kind of seed they're going to look at. But I do think Houston's a very good team. They trended in the right direction. I think this is going to be a very good game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Houston, mainly because they're returning all of their major players from last year, and that team went 23-8. They had a ton of success last year. They have all those major guys back, so I'm actually going to go with Houston as well on this one. So that's going to conclude our basketball talk for the NCAA. Let's flip NCAA sports and go to football. First off, ASU. They were hopeful to return this week. Not anymore.
Not.
The game against Utah has been canceled.
Hey, Borat,
ASU will not play this week.
It's due to COVID once again. Who knows if they're really going to get another game in, which really, really sucks for college football fans and ASU fans. So they're not going to be playing again this week. But a top team is out for this week, and that's Clemson. Their game against FSU has been canceled due to COVID. And what I really want to emphasize on this is the jabs that these two schools are sharing against each other. Could this be revitalizing a rivalry that's really gone away since the sudden demise of Florida State football?
Let me give you a couple words of wisdom here. Look, this college sports and COVID, I'm going to keep saying it. I said this before the season started, especially with football. Especially with football. Honey, you got a big storm coming. A big poo storm. It's all swirly and brown. Big storm. That I cannot see this this college football season finishing. I can't. Listen to me. With teams, when you see teams like Clemson having problems like this, and this pandemic is only heightening right now. We are in the height of this pandemic, and it is only getting worse. There is no, other than a vaccine that's coming for vulnerable people, there is no reasonable end in sight. And I feel like this has become the COVID-19 show, but we have to talk about it. It's such an important thing to talk about in the world of sports right now. And in terms of sports that aren't being played, that's almost more important than sports that are being played. So college sports, if more teams start having issues like Arizona State has had and like Clemson has had, it's just going to get ugly.
So here's where you're wrong. You're right about the pandemic. You're right about that stuff. However,
wait, it's just a cold. It's just a cold, right, Dom?
It's not. Okay, I said that early March. I didn't know anything. Nobody knew anything. So I don't even want to hear that. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I was wrong. I was very wrong. I'm very on the record about it. Okay. You know what? I don't want to hear it. The season's gonna finish. Let's get that straight. I mean, some of these seasons end this week and the week after that, so they're gonna get through that. And back to what we were going to talk about. So the Clemson Florida State game was supposed to be this past weekend, and it got canceled because Florida State backed out after Clemson had a player test positive. And it's not going to revitalize the rivalry just because Florida State sucks so badly right now. Now, I mean, they did beat UNC earlier this year, but Clemson has just run through everyone. And I don't know what to think about this because, like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about basketball, the virus, it's significantly tougher to contract it when you're outside, and science has backed that up. And to my knowledge, there hasn't been a single case of a team having a player go on the field with a player who had the virus and then tested positive after the game and then spread it to a player during the game.
Yes, you are correct. As soon as that team-to-team transmission happens, that's when I think college football will have a greater problem on its hands.
100%. But it hasn't happened yet, and there's been hundreds of games. So I'm not going to criticize Florida State for keeping the best interest in their players' health, but I mean, at the same time, the science, you got to trust the science here, and I don't think this helps the rivalry at all.
Yeah, I don't either. The only thing that could help this rivalry is Florida State getting better and trying to be on Clemson's level. Until that day happens, until they can get back to competing at a higher level, something that they haven't been able to do in the last couple seasons, it's really not going to change anything. So I don't think that this really has any impact when it comes to the rivalry between the two schools.
Yeah. For this, really what I think it does for the rivalry is just bring some more fuel to the fire because they're throwing jabs at each other, and maybe that'll spice it up. I'm not saying that it's going to change the outcome of the game, but it might bring some more flair and some more passion to this rivalry that's really gone away. But you're right. The science really shows something otherwise, but you can't blame Florida State for caring about its athletes. So that's really how it's a double-edged sword, really. Next up, we've got 2 top 25 matchups this week in college football. The first one's in the Big Ten. No, not the Big Ten. Wow. Big 12. I'm really struggling tonight. Number 15, Iowa State travels to Austin to take on the 20th ranked Texas Longhorns. Who do we have in this one?
It's going to be a great game. I'm going to take Brock Purdy and the Iowa State Cyclones. These two teams have 2 of the better defenses of the conference. And the Longhorns are never out of the game with Sam Ehlinger at quarterback. It's going to be a great game. Ultimately, I'm going to take the Cyclones here. I believe both teams are coming off a bye week, so they'll be nice and healthy.
Now, if there is a college sport I know anything about, it's college football. And not to say I know a lot about it, but I know something about it. And in this case, I'm going to take the Texas Longhorns this week. Horns up. I think people are giving them a bad rap this season, and I think a lot of that's just because of almost the stigma that surrounds them. So I think they kind of get a bad rap as a team. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in this one.
We'll go Horns down. I'm going to take Iowa State in this one. It's another one of those good top 25 matchups. Thank you for zooming in on there. Yeah, I can those horns to move around. I'm going to take Iowa State in this one. I think that it should be a very good game. I know that Ehlinger can, like Don mentioned, have some shootouts. He can go back and forth with the best of them. That's a Texas offense. It's very capable of that. But I think that the Cyclones get it done in this one.
I'm going to take the Cyclones as well. This is a very good quarterback matchup with Brock Purdy and Sam Ehlinger. I think it's a great matchup. But if you're looking at the defenses, I like Iowa State's defense more, so that's why I'm really going to go with that. And then we have a very interesting game as the ACC with number 2, Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, heading to UNC to face on the 25th ranked Tar Heels.
If the Fighting Irish show up, they're going to beat UNC because UNC can't play defense. But I think UNC's offense and Sam Howell is certainly capable of keeping it close with Notre Dame. At the end of the day, I'm going to take UNC.
You are?
Or sorry, take Notre Dame. Take Notre Dame. I'm sorry.
Okay.
As soon as I said that, I'm like, wait, what? What did I say?
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, I think he meant to say Notre Dame.
No, I gotta take Notre Dame in this one. From everything I've seen, I've probably seen them play more than a lot of teams this year. So I'm gonna go Notre Dame this game. I don't even see it really being that close.
I'm gonna take the Fighting Irish as well. I think Notre Dame has definitely impressed me. I mean, they got off to a strong start. I was like, okay, we've seen this in years past, but they've backed it up each and every single week. That win over Clemson was very impressive to me. That was a staple win, and they've really given me every reason to choose them in this matchup. So I feel like it would be a little bit foolish for me to think otherwise.
Give me UNC. I don't know why. I just have that gut feeling that UNC is going to pull off the upset. I'm a huge Sam Howell fan. I think he's a terrific quarterback and a terrific player. And I just think that this could be the game that trips up Brian Kelly and the Fighting Irish. So with that, let's move on to the craziness that is the NBA. First off, I just want to ask you guys, what are your thoughts on the NBA draft?
I mean, I'd say that there were some hiccups here and there, but overall, the top 3 rounded out exactly how everyone expected. This was a weaker draft class historically, especially looking back to the season before. And it looks like it's going to be a hop because the next draft class is going to be much more improved. So I'd say it went, for the most part, how we expected it to. Sure, there were a couple of picks. I thought Denny fell very far. I was not expecting that. Same goes for Tyrese Halliburton. The Kings got a very good guard in that. But overall, I wouldn't say that there are any insane trades or any insane picks where guys went earlier than they should have. So I would say it went about as expected, as much as any draft could.
A dude who said basketball wasn't even his passion went first overall. I mean, that's just the world we live in nowadays. But overall, it's funny. This draft, I had no real interest in it. I had coverage going on my phone, but I wasn't really watching intently or anything like that. I think I watched like a movie or something. Like I wasn't too invested in this draft. I forgot it even happened, honestly. Like that's why I'm like, oh, we're talking about the draft right now. I like who the Celtics got out of it, my team. I think we had a very good draft. Sko Ducks. But no, I think that like you said, Parker, this year was weaker and it kind of pushed me away a little bit. But I'll be excited to see how these players pan out. It'll be really interesting to see if the Timberwolves made the right pick.
Yeah. Actually, the only thing I would mention that was a very big head scratcher is Patrick Williams going fourth overall. That obviously had a little bit of an effect, but I mean, the reason why I overall thought it wasn't that crazy is because that was just one pick. And although there were a couple other guys that slid, that was the only one that was of the most significance that I was not expecting whatsoever.
I mean, I'm a believer in Patrick Williams anyways. I was a big fan of his game at Florida State. Guy that can really do it all, shoot, handle the ball, extremely good defender, like really good defender. So I actually like that pick. And I also like what the Mavs did. They got two shooters. They got Tyrell Terry and they got Josh Green, both guys out of the Pac-12. Both guys can shoot the basketball. And that's what the Mavs needed to put around Luka Doncic. You know, they've been a key storyline around the NBA after Luka Doncic has really taken the NBA by storm. And they were very competitive with the Clippers in the first round this year after being a 7 seed. And a lot of people expect them to take a step forward this upcoming season. And I think this draft just really solidifies that. I thought the Suns pick of Jalen Smith was interesting. I loved watching him in college. I'm not sure his game will translate that well to the NBA. He's going to need to put on some muscle because he's a very skillful defender, very skillful player down low, and a skillful shooter, but he needs to gain some weight because he can't be that skinny playing down low. He's kind of like Kevin Durant, except not as good of a ball handler and not quite athletic. But if they can turn him into a superstar player, him and DeAndre Ayton could be just absolutely horrific to play against down low.
Yeah, I really think the one thing about the top 3 picks is that none of them are really fully established. All 3 of them are really projects. And you haven't really seen that in most recent drafts. Like last year, you had Zion, you had Ja, and RJ Barrett. 2 of those guys were extremely big pieces for their franchises when they were healthy and played. The healthy part was mainly at Zion, but still get my point across. These guys are all projects. But I will say this. I really like how the Hornets went with the draft by adding a couple guys, big guys in Vernon Carey, who's one of them, to play with the pick and roll offense with LaMelo Ball. I think that is actually going to work out pretty well. So I like that. The Jalen Smith pick, I like because of what he brings defensively for the Suns. The Suns need a guy down low who's going to block shots and make up for the subpar defense of DeAndre Ayton. So I really like that, but I agree with you, Dom. He needs to gain some muscle and gain some weight. But a couple of guys that I think fell too far, one definitely is Deni Avdija. I thought he was going to be, at worst, a top 6-7 pick. And then Tyrese Haliburton. I did not think he would follow the Kings. And we'll get into this later, but I think that pick helped them decline to match Bogdanovich's offer from the Hawks. So that's how I view the draft a lot. But there were some trades that went down. So I'm going to name 4 trades that went down, and then one of us will talk about each one. The first one was the 76ers sent Al Horford, a 2025 first-round pick, and the number 34 pick in the draft, and the rights to their Serbian point guard, Vasilije Micic, to the Thunder for Danny Green and Terrence Ferguson. The second one was the Thunder, once again. They trade Ricky Rubio, the 25th pick, and the 28th pick to the Timberwolves for James Johnson, the number 17 pick, and a 2024 second rounder. The next one is a 3-team trade with the Clippers sending Landry Shamet to the Nets. The Pistons received the number 19 pick in the draft, who they took was Sadiq Bey, and received Rodney McGruder, while the Clippers got Luke Kennard. The final
Sadiq Bey, baby.
Shush. Don't bring up that name, please, Dom. Please don't bring up that name.
Sadiq Bey.
That name will haunt me forever. But that final trade is going to be the 76ers trading for Seth Curry from the Mavericks for Josh Richardson and the number 36 pick in the draft. Parker, go ahead and start off with whatever trade you want to go and break down.
I love the Seth Curry trade for the 76ers. That is something they needed so desperately, and that's why I thought that they didn't have a winning formula in the current league that we're in with the NBA and the state that it's currently in with valuing three-point shooting. They needed to get that guy who can hit big-time shots, and Seth Curry is that man. He may not be his brother in Steph, but he is an excellent shooter and should not be slept on just because of the fact that he's his younger brother. Seth is a legit baller, and he's proven that with both the Trailblazers and with the Mavericks now. So I think that this was a great move, giving up Josh Richardson and eventually that 36 overall pick, which was Tyler Bey, a player that I was high on at Colorado. I thought he was a very solid player, especially when you're getting him in the second round. I think that they ultimately won that trade because of the value that they're getting in Seth, because of how he's an underrated player, mixed with the fact that that is what they needed more than anything. Josh Richardson didn't fit in the way that I believe Seth will. So I think that that was a great move by the 76ers.
Can I go next? I was raising my hand, Ryan. I just don't think you saw it. Can I talk about the Al Horford trade?
Yeah, go ahead. Pick whatever trade you want to talk about.
Good for – well, not good for – screw the 76ers. Good for the 76ers in the sense that they got rid of that cap. That cap space, that salary money, and got Danny Green in exchange. Danny Green, he ain't all that, but he's a player. A player who might have some locker room presence, but I don't know, man. He's got a ring. But I feel bad for Al Horford because 76ers fans are just the worst fans on the face of the earth. Ricky Weeps, if you're listening, I hope you know that. But it's Philadelphia fans in general are the worst fans on the face of the earth. And they were so brutal to Al Horford in his time in Philadelphia. And I have a sweet spot for Al Horford. He was a Celtic for a long time. He was a very good, very effective, and really great presence to have. So it was really disappointing to see the way they treated him in Philadelphia. Then when he got shipped out, I loved all the Twitter drama that broke out between his family and 76ers fans. I don't know if anybody saw that, but if anybody would like to comment on that as well, it was great. But his wife and his sister and everything were like, we're so happy to get out of this trash ass city, and all these awesome comments. And as a Boston sports fan, I have nothing but hate for Philadelphia. So beautiful city. Nothing but hate for it as a sports fan, I should say.
Great American city, you should clarify.
Yes, great American city. God love Philadelphia, but their sports fans can die.
I think their sports fans are very comical, and they're
so delusional. They're so delusional.
I enjoy my friendships I have with a lot of Philly sports fans, but sometimes they can be wrong. The trade I'll highlight, I guess, Ricky Rubio, the eventual pick that sent Emmanuel Quigley and the 20th pick to the Timberwolves for James Johnson, the 17th pick, which ended up being Alexei Poku. I just call him Poku because he's really good. And a 2024 second rounder. Once again, why are we trading 2024 second round picks? It makes zero sense to me. But I think that's an interesting trade, to say the least, because the Thunder, they acquired Ricky Rubio in the Chris Paul trade, and they traded him immediately. I think Emmanuel Quigley, who is now going to be on the Knicks, is a very talented shooter. I said this before back in March when we were talking about primarily college basketball at that time, that when Emmanuel Quigley got hot, so did the Kentucky Wildcats. I think that he could be a very solid NBA player for the Knicks. I think this trade is interesting. Not really sure what either team is trying to do here, but I think that Poku can certainly be a very solid big man in the NBA. And I don't know what the 2024 second round pick is going to do. I just thought that was a confusing trade. I liked some of the trades that the Thunder did, and then some of them it's like, okay, at some point you have to like build a team and stick with that team. And I feel like you're just bringing in a ton of people, and this is kind of what they did last year. I said kind of. They brought in Schroeder, they brought in Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort on the two-way deal. They just kind of brought in a ton of guys. They ended up playing well, but I don't think they have that guy, that Chris Paul, that can really help that team this year. So I'm really confused as to what direction the Thunder are trying to go right now. They do have a ton of draft capital the next couple of years. They had a ton of
the move they're trying to make right now is save those draft picks and build for the future.
Yeah, but at the same time, they also like have some players that are just really weird. So
who? Like, give me a specific so I can combat you.
Well, I need to see who they have. Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't know where they are. Like, they just have a ton of draft picks and just a ton of players.
I mean, Shai is a budding star.
Yeah,
right?
Shai's good. Shai's really good.
Lou Dort is a budding star.
Can we mention something real quick? How Zylan Cheatham and Lou Dort are now teammates again in Oklahoma City now?
They were an 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. So,
anyways, Lou Dort, budding star, right?
Sure.
He proved himself in the playoffs. I'll say that. We don't have a big enough sample size, but he was really good in the bubble. So we'll see what they can do, but I like the Thunder. I mean, they have what, like 30 first-round draft picks in the next 5 years, dude. That's an exaggeration, obviously, but they have a lot.
Yeah, no, the draft capital they got is really good, but at the same time, they were a 5 seed in this year's NBA playoffs.
But Chris Paul is getting older, and they know that. So they absolutely fleeced the Suns.
I don't know. We'll see. But I like the Chris Paul trade for them. But then they went out and made so many other trades, and it's like, where is this team going? I'm just a little lost when it comes to the Thunder, especially in a very deep Western Conference right now.
Yeah, Dom, you mentioned them retooling.
Exactly. Sorry, Ryan. Sorry. No, but exactly. You say a very deep Western Conference, and I don't want to get caught up on this because we have a lot to talk about. But you say a very deep Western Conference, that's the thing. They don't want to be competitors right now because they know it's futile. They know that their chances in the Western Conference are so slim to none that they're like, we're going to build for the future. We're going to wait till LeBron's gone. We're going to wait until AD goes back to the East. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but if it does, it's going to, they're waiting until their chances become better, and then they're going to strike.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, Dom, you mentioned them last show, really retooling. No, and I said it was rebuilding, and this proves that they're now going into that rebuild because they want to wait till when they can be competitive and get back to the finals and have a chance to win that. So that's really what I see it as. But the trade that you guys not cover that I'll take is the Clippers, Pistons, and Nets trade. This trade does not make the most sense for the Pistons, I would say. They gave up Luke Kennard, who had been in trade talks for the past couple of years, and the Clippers get him, which upgrades them compared to Landry Shamet, who's going to the Nets, which I think is a good add. Solid shooter from Wichita State, and I think he can be a good role player for them. But I think Luke Kennard is really going to see an uptick in his production going to a very competitive Clippers team. But the Pistons get Rodney Magruder and a young player that they drafted in Sadiq Bey. So the trade really, it seems like if I had to pick a winner right now, it's going to the Clippers. But I like that each team is benefiting from each piece that they got. So I think that's kind of a win for all of them. But the definite winner above all, I would say, is the Clippers in this one. But let's move on to the Warriors. The Warriors had some rough news this week as they've lost star shooting guard Klay Thompson for the second straight year. Last year he was out with a torn ACL and a leg injury in workouts. He tore his Achilles. So, Parker, I'm going to start with you on this, but also I'm going to say the other thing I want you to mention, and that's they traded for Kelly Oubre from the Thunder for a first-round pick. So I want you to cover both, but start out with Klay Thompson, that injury.
Yeah, I mean, this is an injury where your championship odds probably cut in at least in half, maybe even from like 40, 50% to like 15 or 20%, just like that, because Klay is extremely valuable. He's one of the best players in the league. There's not many guys that play defense and still have an ability to score. He's the definition of a 3-and-D player, but he's so much more. He brings so much to the table for this team. So I really can't think of a player who's gone through more in such a short span of time to take all that time in rehab to recover from a season-ending injury that it helped eliminate them from the finals. I mean, that hugely contributed to that. They could have gone on to win Game 6. I'm a believer they would have. Would they have won Game 7? I don't even want to speculate because there's just no way to know. But I do think they would have won then. So to see him go out there in the finals on the biggest stage and then have him miss the entire remainder of the following season, only to get back strong, better than ever, looking like he's finally ready to hit the court, then to tear his Achilles in his other right leg, that is just brutal. I mean, to have those season-ending injuries in both legs, it doesn't get any worse than that. Those are two of the worst injuries you can suffer. So that's a huge loss for this team. And the way that they're viewed as far as being more competitive in the West, it changes drastically when that happens. Then you get a guy in Kelly Oubre. I actually expected this move to happen. That was the player that I wanted them to go for with that traded player exception money from that Andre Iguodala trade. It made a whole lot of sense. I had a feeling as soon as he got traded to OKC, he was going to get flipped. Sure enough, he did get flipped to the Bay and Golden State. It's a move that I love. Kelly's 24 years old. He's only making $14.375 million, and he showed great signs last year. He's grown a lot in maturity as a player, and he showed out over there in Phoenix. So I think he put together a very solid season and can do that again with a lot more talent. He's never had talent like this around him from playing with the Wizards to the Suns. He's not used to this. He's going to have Steph shooting. He's going to have Wiggins around him, Draymond facilitating. I expect his game to elevate and him to be a huge piece to this team. It's definitely much needed with the loss of Klay Thompson.
I'm going to make this quick again. Really upsetting loss, not just for Warriors fans, but for the game of basketball. Klay Thompson is one of the most liked, most humble, and greatest players that we've seen in our lifetime. He plays hard, and it's devastating to see this happen to him. But Oubre will help. That'll make it better. He's not Klay Thompson. Nobody is. But I still think that the Warriors are title contenders with this roster that they built. Call me crazy, Parker. I don't know. Maybe not this year. Maybe the next year. I hope Klay Thompson can make a full recovery, but who knows? He's going to be out of shooting for 2 years straight, right? I mean, he might not come back the same, and that's the hard reality you have to face in any sport when you see a player get hurt like this. But you can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, you guys touched on it. It sucks that Klay's hurt. So, thoughts and prayers. Hopefully he recovers quickly and that he can get back on the floor and we can get back to seeing him play. Once again, heartbroken that Oubre is gone. He transformed that. I don't want to say he transformed the franchise, but he transformed the
100%
culture.
Transformed the culture.
Yes. So we'll see if that culture continues. The Valley Boys, Somos Phoenix, wishing the best of luck in Golden State.
Yeah, talking about Klay Thompson, it's so unfortunate. This is a guy who worked so hard to come back and wanted to be a big piece of that team. And especially with drafting a guy like James Wiseman, who, if he can reach his full potential, they have a complete starting lineup. And I love watching Klay Thompson. Terrific shooter, terrific player. He's one of the best guards, shooting guards, I would say, in the NBA. And it just sucks that you're going to see a guy like that continue to be out when he's just such a pleasure to watch. But like Pat said, getting Oubre helps. It's a good trade, especially with the trade exception money that they have. But I don't think it solves all their problems. I think that they decline in shooting. But I think Kelly Oubre is a good piece for them. Extremely young at 24 years old, but he's no Klay Thompson. So that's really how I view it. Next up, Pat, this is where we're gonna let you just sound off. Gordon Hayward declined his $34 million option and signed a 4-year, $120 million deal with the Hornets.
Shoot, I thought you were going to give me the better news. Yeah, you know what? It stinks. It stinks, and the front office should be on the hot seat for this. The front office of Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens should be on the hot seat for this move. And no, Dom, don't give me that face, because they had they should have been able to get something out of Gordon Hayward, and they weren't able to make it happen. And that is just, you know what, Danny Ainge, I love you. I love you, Brad Stevens. I love both of you. But you got to get something for Gordon Hayward. You can't just let that player walk. A player of that level, who we were so close to doing the sign and trade and getting Miles Turner. That would have been huge for the Boston Celtics. A shooting big man? Oh my God. But it was devastating that we didn't get anything for him. But it's fine. I don't think losing him is going to significantly hurt our championship, our title contender chances. It's going to hurt them. But I don't think that we get significantly worse. We put Marcus Smart in the starting lineup. We've seen what he can do. And we got to sign somebody to play backup point guard. And I don't want to Wanamaker declined his option. Thank the Lord. But yeah, I don't know. I hope for big things for the Celtics next year. It's still possible, but all we've done is get worse this offseason.
You had me worried at how you started your thing with the hot seat. I mean, Gordon Hayward was a good player at Boston. I can't deny that. But he never really lived up to his gigantic contract that he signed after he...
Right. And the worst thing...
and the injury was a big part of it.
Just because you're speaking on the big contract, the worst thing about him walking for nothing is the fact that we can't even get a free agent now that we have the $34 million of him gone. Because we are still so high over the cap that, like, we couldn't even think about touching a player. I mean... We're still like $100 million over the cap. So anyways, keep going.
Yeah. So the Celtics were put in a tough spot. It's tough to trade a guy for that much money unless you want to give up draft capital. And at that point, it's tough to do it. So, Gordon Hayward goes out, he gets paid, still a lot of money down in Charlotte, but Daddy's always happy. So we'll see how he does down there.
Parker?
Well, that was interesting because when he decided to opt out to be eligible to sign elsewhere with the Hornets, I did not expect him to get anywhere near as much as he did. I thought that was ridiculous because I've been one of those people that every time I see a contract where a player gets more than they should get, I just like to explain that's the direction the game's going, even with the cap going down this year. There was a trend starting back in 2016 where guys were getting paid absurd money. Paul Millsap was one of those guys. I don't remember exactly if it was 2016 or not, but he got a huge $30 million a year contract, which he should not have gotten because although he's a good player, he wasn't worth that kind of contract at the time. And I think that's just the direction the game's going to continue to go. The average salary of a player is going up, so you're going to see some of these guys get more money than they're worth. I think that this is one of those examples. Gordon Hayward is a very solid player. I loved watching him at Utah the year that he was an all-star. I thought he brought a lot to that Jazz team, and it made a lot of sense for the Celtics to bring him in with Kyrie at that time. But this is a guy that is not worth that big of a contract, and I know that you're Charlotte and you're trying to put some pieces around LaMelo because the big thing is him being successful. And if you want to help push that success, you're going to try and put guys around him when it comes to solid vets like Hayward. I just thought that was way too much money.
I was actually shocked that he left the Celtics, mainly because I didn't think he'd get the money anywhere else. And yet he got it. $30 billion a year over 4 years with Charlotte, who was a team that wanted him back in 2014, lost out on him, and now they got him. So that's really all I have to say about it. It's just a shocking scene of events, especially because after he declined it, you were hearing Pacers and Knicks, and then all of a sudden, the Hornets come out of nowhere and at him. So that was really shocking to me. But outside of signings, there have been some insane extensions giving out this week. Pat, your boy Jason Tatum, 5 years, $195 million extension. Donovan Mitchell, 5 years, $195. De'Aaron Fox of the Kings, 5 years, $163. Brandon Ingram today got 5 years, $158. And Bam Adebayo of the Heat, 5 years, $195. which player do you guys see is going to have the most success and who's going to be worth each cent throughout the next 5 years?
Well, I'm going to talk about Jason Tatum because that's my guy. But real quick, I want to talk about real quick. I want to talk about Brandon Ingram and the New Orleans Pelicans. The New Orleans Pelicans are playing chess while everybody else in the league is playing checkers. The New Orleans Pelicans are geniuses because they're in the same situation as the OKC. They know they're not going to win anything for the next couple of years, right? They're playing NBA basketball, but the draft capital they possess and the players that they are building around their team is insane. And they just signed Brandon Ingram to a 5-year extension. That's incredible. That's so good for them. But I'm going to talk about the Celtics. Jason Tatum signing this extension is the best thing we could have done. Jason Tatum, we have him locked down for the next 5 years. We now have Kemba Walker locked down for the next 4 years. We now have Jaylen Brown locked down for the next 4 years. We have Robert Williams on our team still, and he's progressing. We have Daniel Tice on our team still. He's still progressing. We just locked down Marcus Smart for a couple of years last year. I think it was a 3-year extension. I'm not sure. But we are going – the door is – not we, because I'm not a Celtic. The door is wide open for the Boston Celtics. And now all they have to do is continue to develop Jalen, continue to develop Jason, and our team will be in the finals within the next 3 years.
My biggest takeaway, I'd have to say, for these contracts, what stood out to me is timeliness. Brandon Ingram, to have a season that he had in a contract year, and we see this a lot, not just the NBA, but in all sports. When guys know that they have to make this contract count and finish strong so that they get a very good next one, especially based on where he is at his career as a very young player who's going to get another big contract when this one's up. I just think that you have to point out him, you have to point out Bam Adebayo. He had a very good bubble and a good season as a whole. He was a very big contributor to the success that led Miami to the NBA Finals. But he did make a lot of money, and I think that you have to point to the bubble for allowing him to get a contract like this because I feel like he stands out from Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell. I don't think he's quite in that hierarchy of players. I think that those two were done deals. Those were guys who were guaranteed to get those contracts. But Bam stood out to me for making that kind of money. I'm a big fan of his game. I think that he brought a lot to the table for Miami, but that is a contract that I thought was a little bit interesting. But again, can't contradict myself. I do know that there's a lot of big money that's going to be thrown out there to these guys. So ultimately, it doesn't come down to it being that much of a surprise at this point.
Yeah, the one I'm most worried about is actually Bam Adebayo. And because the Heat have said they want to make a run at Giannis. But that deal, I think, kind of takes them out of it. I don't think they'll have the money to be able to add Giannis. And, yeah, Bam had a great year, improved greatly, and it's proven to be a big piece for that Heat team in that front court. But I just don't know if he has shown enough and if he can sustain that success for years to come. So that's my only worry. Jason Tatum is the best player out of his draft class. He deserves that money. He's the best player. He's a rising star. Pat, you know that. Every one of us knows that. So Tatum's worth the money. Donovan Mitchell's worth the money. He carried that Jazz team into the playoffs despite all of their COVID issues and really scored over 40 points in every single game and kept them in the games and gave them a chance to win that series. De'Aaron Fox, one of the most athletic guards. I really like De'Aaron Fox. I think he's just another star. Brandon Ingram, the Pelicans have been geniuses. Really adding Brandon Ingram and signing him to a long-term extension after having a career year and making it to the All-Star game. Incredible. He was a guy for most improved player of the year. Just an insane year from him. And I'm very high on the Pelicans going forward. But let's move on to a couple signings I just want to talk about. We don't have to say them. I just want to put them out there. Van Vliet returned to the Raptors, 4 years, $85 million. Christian Wood has left the Pistons and is going to the Rockets on a 3-year deal. Joe Harris goes back to the Nets on a 4 year, $75 million deal. Davis Bertans got 5 years, $80 to stay with the
Why
Wizards.
are we talking about Davis Bertans right now? We gotta.
'Cause I think
It's already been an hour. We haven't even gotten to the NFL.
But I want to ask you
Okay.
guys. There's 4 teams that have been pretty active. The Clippers, Hawks, Lakers, and Bucks. Who do you think has had the best offseason and why?
Well, I mean, as far as I don't know who I would say the best was, but I would say that shout out to Ethan. I do think the Hawks have had a good offseason. They do draft Onyeka Okongwu. I like that pick. Then you go and get a guy like Bogdanovich. The Kings decided not to match that, to keep him in Sacramento. I think that that's a good move. I've always been a fan of his game. As someone in the Bay Area, Kings games are on all the time, so I'm able to watch some of his play. And he was always one of those few bright spots alongside De'Aaron Fox. So I like his game. I think that that's going to be a good asset to them. And I think that the Hawks have made some good moves, put some talent around Trae Young. Ultimately, there's so many much better teams in the East, and I don't expect them to be competing at a high level whatsoever. They haven't given me any reason to believe that. But I do think they're starting to build a nice young core alongside him. And I think that the near future in the next 2 or 3 years could be relatively bright for Atlanta.
Oh, if you ask me, the best offseason goes to none of the above. I'm giving it to the Oklahoma City Thunder or the New Orleans Pelicans.
The Los Angeles Lakers, baby. Lakers info. I'm already predicting it. Lakers info. Not only do they add Dennis Schroeder, they also go out and they add sixth man of the year, Montrezl Harrell. Sorry, excuse me. He's a beast. They re-signed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and they also trade JaVale McGee to clear cap space for none other than Marc Gasol. Lakers info. I'm saying it. It's November. I don't care. Lakers info.
Yeah, I got to shout out to the Hawks real quick. Really, because they add Danilo Gallinari. They just add Bogdanovich, get Onyeka Okongwu, add Rajon Rondo. They're a playoff team, in my opinion, and they're a team that I could see being a fifth seed in that Eastern Conference. That's going to be a really good team who has a great young core, but added to it with some veteran presence and some great players. So I really like that. The Lakers, I think they get it, though. The Lakers have been insane. Wesley Matthews, Marc Gasol, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, and yet we're still waiting on Anthony Davis for his eventual return. That team is just building up and getting better and better. And I think that with how everything's looking, if they can get that team glued together and flow well, then they'll be champions once again. Now, let's move on to the NBA. To the NFL. Let's move on to the NFL.
Freaking God.
Some Week 11 thoughts. Best games, best performances. What did you guys see?
Let's shout out the Colts. How about the Colts defeating the Packers?
People are sleeping on them, man.
I'm not.
A lot of people are. I'm not saying you are.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that on the Colts bandwagon the entire time. They came out, they stifled the Packers in the second half. They've been that second half team. Remember on Thursday Night Football, they really locked down the Tennessee Titans in that second half. They didn't do the same thing against the Ravens, but this is a top 5 defense in the league, unarguably. When Phillip Rivers is playing good football, they're going to win games. I think they're an extremely underrated contender in the AFC. Obviously, there's the Chiefs and the Steelers up at the top, but the Colts are right behind them with that elite defense, and this win just proved it. They killed the Packers. Packers only scored one time in the second half, and that was on their final drive, and that included a 3rd and 9 just bomb down the middle of the field to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So shout out to the Colts.
Let's hear it for the Seahawks real quick, because you guys told me they continue to slide, and I told you they wouldn't. Look at them go. The Seahawks are back, and I still think that they're absolutely Super Bowl contenders. If their defense can step it up the way they did this week for the rest of the season and continue to play at the level that they played at, they're 100% Super Bowl contenders, and they put themselves back in the conversation. The defense looked great this week. It looked incredible compared to how it looked the rest of the season. So shout out Seahawks.
For me, and it has nothing to do with the fact that they're my team, it's the Broncos upset over the Dolphins. I was not expecting that whatsoever. I would say the general NFL fan population was very shook. I expected the Dolphins to walk up in there, that defense to lock up, and Tua to do just enough. Because, again, we knew going into him coming in for Fitzpatrick, he didn't have to do that much. The defense was the strength of this team. But ultimately, the better defense was Denver. They went out there, they got 6 sacks. They forced Tua out of the game, not because of injury, but just because they didn't want him out there. They put in Fitzpatrick, and he threw that game-sealing pick to Justin Simmons, who has continued to be absolutely incredible. And you only look further at John Elway not extending him and think how much of a mistake that truly was, because he's replicating last year with another great season. But this is a team in Denver that just played very well on all cylinders. The pass rush got there, the secondary locked up, and I was very surprised by this. I feel like this is one of those instances where they're going to go over, play the Saints, and it's going to be a very different game. But at the moment, they're coming off of a big win. Props to them. And I'm just surprised by the Dolphins because that snapped their 5-game win streak.
Yeah, you guys covered a lot of big games. I got to give a shout out to the Rams. Went up against a very good offense and a solid pass rushing defense, and they look great. They got a big win, and they really continue to show that despite losing guys like Littleton, like Dante Fowler, they still have a terrific defense. Jordan Fuller had 2 picks off Tom Brady. So that's a big win for the Rams. But also one thing I'm just going to put out there, Patrick Mahomes is winning his second MVP. So moving on, we have more COVID news with the Ravens. 5 positive tests, including running backs J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram. Do you guys think that this could be the situation that leads to an extra playoff team in each conference?
I do, and I think it's going to be my New England Patriots, baby.
Oh, no.
Y'all lost to the Texans.
The Texans had beat one team this year prior to Sunday's game. That was the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes, I heard it a billion times on the cast this Sunday, and I'm still giving it to my New England Patriots. 8 seed, let's go.
I don't know how you could say that when there's 2 teams outside of the playoff picture right now with 6 wins. You guys sitting there at 4. Now, you do have the advantage that you do have that head-to-head win over Baltimore, and if it does come down to that as the 2 teams, you do have the advantage there. Now, I don't think that's how it's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore finishes the season 11-5 or at 10-6. But I mean, with this positive tests, I wouldn't be shocked if this game on Thursday gets canceled, which is a bummer because that game is always good between Ravens and Steelers.
It's the only good game this Thursday.
Well, good in terms of high quality football. Yes. Now, I think that the Lions are, for the most part, always competitive on Thanksgiving. Now, I mean, death taxes and the Lions losing on Thanksgiving, it goes well together. And the Cowboys played the football team. The winner of that's in first place in the NFC East. Now, that could change come Sunday, but that's an exciting game. I mean, you're literally playoff implications on that game. Now, I mean, really bad playoff implications, but I mean, so I hope for America's sake that this game on Thursday night ends up being played. But I mean, there's 5 positive tests right now. I would be 0% shocked to wake up to some Adam Schefter alert tomorrow that says, more tests have come back positive. So we'll see. Hope these players are safe and they can recover well.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the same. I feel like there's a good chance that this game could get postponed, but I'm, of course, hoping that it does not. These games seem to always be competitive, and a game like that's very exciting because the Steelers are an undefeated team. They're the only team that's undefeated left in the league this into the season, and this Ravens team has been on the very disappointing side. I mean, there's a lot of reasons as to why they haven't been able to match the success they had from the previous year, but they've still been disappointing by definition because of the record they have sitting at 6-4. But it's a great divisional matchup. These ones never disappoint, and it would be a great way to cap off the Thanksgiving slate of games. So I'm hoping that it will happen, but again, like Dom said, there should be no surprise that comes with it and the possibility of it being postponed.
I'm at the point where I expect it to get postponed, and it's just because of the amount of cases, and it looks like it could be rising. So I think it's going to be something that's canceled, and I think that'll push it to 8 teams in each conference, which really opens up a lot more possibilities with the playoffs this year. So that'll be actually very interesting to watch. But overall, I think that this game will end up getting canceled. I don't want it to be because I think it's going to be a terrific game, but sadly, I think it will. Now, let's get into our Pick'ems update. Last place, as usual, is Pat, the only one without 100 wins. He's at 90, 71, and 1. Parker's in third place at 101, 60, and 1. I'm in second place at 105, 54, and 1. And Dom's lead grew this week at 109, 52, and 1.
Let's go. Let's go. We stay hot.
So let's get into this week's slew of games. Thursday, Texans at Lions.
I'm pulling my
Man.
right now.
Yeah, I just did. This is tough. The Texans are coming off a nice win. I absolutely love watching Deshaun Watson play. It's Thanksgiving. It's the Lions. I'm going to go with the Texans.
I'm not taking any stake in the fact that the Lions never win on Thanksgiving because that's just some crazy tradition. But I'm going to say that this game is going to go to the Texans. Deshaun Watson's getting better every week. And I think that they're finally falling into this new offensive scheme without Bill O'Brien, and I think it's starting to work for them. They were doing some crazy stuff on Sunday, and I'm sure nobody watched this game because it's the Who Gives a Damn Bowl if you're not a Patriots or Texans fan. But it was a good game to watch. The Texans looked very good, and I couldn't tell if that's because we looked bad, but Deshaun Watson just looked incredible. I mean, he carved apart our defense, which is our one strong suit. Texans.
I'm also going to take the Texans in this one. We saw how Deshaun Watson performed this week against the Patriots. I think that continues. Like I've mentioned, Detroit Lions, they always lose on Thanksgiving. It's painful to watch. Matt Stafford, we saw them get shut out this week. They're struggling to pick up wins. This is a game they need to win if they don't want to finish in last place in this division. Please, I definitely don't have any money on that. Please, Lions. But I will take the Texans in this game.
I'm going to take the Texans as well. Deshaun Watson is playing near MVP level. He's playing great football. And it's just being overshadowed by a poor team performance. So I'm going to take the Texans over the Lions in this one. The next game, Washington will be in Dallas to take on the Cowboys, who are coming off a huge win.
Yeah, and I think they're going to continue their momentum from this game. They came out of the bye. It was a big story with Mike McCarthy, and he brought out a sledgehammer, and he put some watermelons out there, and they put like a piece of paper with their goals on it, and they smashed their goals. And they went out and they smashed their goals, and then the last one had Dalvin Cook's face on it. And then DeMarcus Lawrence said, I want to smash that one, and he smashed it, and the locker room went crazy. And that might be a culture change for the Cowboys. And I think this is going to continue. I think they're going to be able to pound the ball like they just did against Minnesota. Against Washington, I'm going to take the Cowboys in this one.
Yep, same here. Going with the Cowboys on this one.
Give me the football team.
All right.
I'm struggling here, and I want to make up a game on Dom, but I'm just really liking what the Cowboys did, and I think it's going to be momentum that rides throughout, so I'm going to take the Cowboys. Now, if this game is played, Ravens at Steelers.
Steelers.
Yeah, Steelers. It's hard. It's going to be tough. It's going to be closer than a lot of people realize. I mean, the Ravens are still a good team. Don't care what anyone says. The Steelers, when you're 10-0, all the pressure's on you, but I think they get it done.
Give me the Ravens in this one. Statistically, the Steelers have to lose eventually, right? Like, it's got to happen. I also did pick the Jags to beat them, too, so there should be no shock that I picked the Ravens to beat them.
Your picks are all over the board with some teams.
So good. I think the Steelers are going to go 11-0 if the game is played. Next up, Chargers travel to Buffalo.
Bills.
The Bills.
C-word.
No, Pat.
Wow.
I haven't picked Buffalo once this season, and I'm not going to. Okay?
That's why, dude. That's why you're in last.
Let's into a deeper hole, Pat.
Listen. Blank came in last year because he wouldn't pick against the Chiefs.
But they went 12-4.
That's an awful comparison, Pat.
I'm coming in last this year because I won't pick the Bills. All right.
Okay.
And you picked the Pats every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
And you picked the Bengals way too many times. They're 2-2. There's a lot of.
Don't worry, I'm picking them this week too with no Joe Burrow.
Oh,
They're winning it for Joey B.
Let's just move on. Dolphins at Jets.
Oh
Dolphins.
my.
the
Dolphins.
Jets
Dolphins.
almost pulled it out this week, but they didn't.
Dolphins in this one for me. Next up, Cardinals at Patriots.
Cardinals.
We already know what you're gonna say, so just say it.
I can't even say it with a straight face. Give me the Pats in this one.
Despite Kyler Murray having a hurt shoulder, I'm still going with the Cardinals. Next up, Giants at Bengals. We know Pat's picking the Bengals.
Giants.
Wait, no, I was actually kidding. I want the Giants in this one.
Okay, good.
All right. Yeah, I'm also going to take the Giants. I think when it's all said and done, they're on top of the NFC East.
I'm going to take the Giants as well. Next up, Raiders travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons.
Raiders. Sorry, Ethan.
So I like picking the Raiders, but I also like picking the Falcons, and I've always had this hard time. But the Raiders are the better football team, so I'm gonna go with the Falcons.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Raiders in this one. They're a very good football team. So let's just move on from that after what I just said. Browns at Jaguars.
Browns.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Browns. Okay.
Yeah, Browns. Next up, Panthers at Vikings.
Vikings.
Panthers.
PJ Walker is undefeated in his professional football career when starting, but I'm gonna go with them. nonetheless.
Exactly. Panthers.
Yeah, no,
So-
this is a tough game to pick. I'm going to take the Vikings, though. I
Yeah,
think they bounce
Vikings.
back. I think they're playing a little bit less of a motivated team than the Cowboys. So I think they get it done this week. But Panthers, they had a very impressive performance against the Lions this week.
My boy PJ
Beat
Walker.
Dalvin and
Okay.
Vikings all the
Bring
way.
me a game closer to Dom. I am taking the Panthers.
Let's
in this.
go, Ryan.
Let's go,
I
Pat.
was the only one last week. I'm glad somebody's hopping on the bandwagon.
Or a game.
Titans at Colts in a rematch.
I picked the Titans last time. They disappointed me. Part of me is just telling me that if I switch it, it would just be wrong of me because there's a good chance these two teams split. So I'm going to go with the Titans. Please win. That's all I ask.
Parker Dunn, don't you worry. I'm going with the Titans, too. Derrick Henry's hit his stride at this point in the season, and he's just going to run all over these guys.
See, the words coming out of your mouth saying, Parker Dunn, don't worry, I'm going to join you, aren't exactly words of assurance. Now, with that being said, I'm going to take the Colts. I've been high on the Colts all year. The Titans, they struggled for the majority of the game against the Ravens. And then, they ended up getting that overtime victory. But the Colts are, in my opinion, a more well-rounded team right now. They're playing better football right now. And, voice crack, I'm going to take the Colts again. I think they improved to 8-3. They have the season series victory over the Titans, and at that point, they're not going to coast, but they're going to have a much easier path to winning the AFC South. Give me the Colts.
I'm going to take the Titans. I need the game on Dom, and I just think the Titans are really fighting their stride. So I'm going to take the Titans in this one.
They're not finding their stride. They're 2-3 in the last.
They're refinding their stride then.
Okay,
Derrick Henry is
fine.
getting back to where he was at, and I need this game. So there.
You should be picking teams to win, not picking for the standings.
But I also think the Titans are going to win. So
If it's close enough game, I say pick for the standings. You don't listen to him, Ryan. Don't listen to him. He's a bully.
It's not a bad pick, but him saying I need to pick up a game.
He's a bully.
There's so much time for your picks to actually work out in a way that you make up those games.
I still think the Titans are going to win.
Like if this
let's
is
move
week
on.
17, then by all means throw a Hail Mary, but that's just no point.
Okay, let's move on. Saints travel to Denver.
Saints.
Yeah, I think this actually has the potential to be a very, very good game. The Broncos' defense is extremely underrated. They absolutely crushed Tua. I think they have a chance to lock up Taysom Hill in the offense, make him throw the ball. He was pretty solid against the Falcons. Got to take with a grain of salt, it is the Falcons. But I will take the Saints here. I think it's going to be a close game, though. Denver's trying to fight their way in.
Yeah. You know what? I used to love watching the Saints when I was younger, back in the bounty hunting days. Not because of bounty hunting, but
I was gonna say that's a really
But
Good thing you say.
that happened to be when I was a big fan of the Saints growing up. I'm still a big fan of Drew Brees. However, at this point, if there's one team in the NFL that I cannot stand to watch play football, it's the New Orleans Saints. So I am going to pick the Denver Broncos in this game just because I simply cannot stand watching the Saints. Especially I cannot stand watching Taysom Hill, who they're starting at quarterback. So
That clip taken out of context of just what you said with that one phrase was incredible.
How many wins are you going to lose by?
we'll see. We'll see.
Over
I think
under 10. Over under 10, Ryan.
how many games am I going to
I know you're
win?
at Ryan, I know you're at this stuff, but you're taking the over. Okay.
Brett Favre is shaking his head in disappointment.
Okay.
Andy Pat.
I'm taking the Saints in this one over the Broncos. Next up, the Rams. Go back home and take on the Niners.
I think the 6.5-point spread in this game is ridiculous. I think it's been 4 or 5 years since these teams split the season series. The 49ers won the first one. Divisional matchup, it's going to be close, but at this point, the Rams are the much healthier team, and they're playing much better football than them. Give me the Rams. 8-3, it's time to start taking the Rams serious as NFC contenders.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I will also be taking the Rams in this one.
Ryan, I'm actually curious to see who you're picking in this game.
I always go last.
You always go last, yeah? Okay.
He's picking the Rams.
I know. Part of me wants to take the 49ers, not because I don't believe in the Rams. I think they're a very good team, but it is a divisional game, and Raheem Mostert's coming back. The 49ers haven't been bad. They've been using their receivers really, really well. But I think I am going to go with the Rams in this one.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Rams. It was kind of obvious. I just don't have trust in the 49ers, mainly because they're just so injured. Next up,
Season.
the Chiefs travel to Tampa to take on the Bucs.
This is a huge game for Tampa, but I still think the Chiefs are the much better team. I like what they've done. I expect them to win this game.
Anyone but the Chiefs, give me Tampa Bay.
Yep, Ryan, I'm going to take your Chiefs here. The Buccaneers' offense has kind of been exposed. Say you will, the run offense isn't that effective. Now, they do need Ali Marpet back. He's a big part of their team. He may come back this week. Tom Brady throwing the deep ball has been absolutely pathetic as of late. Like, so bad. And with the way that Bruce Arians run the offense with the air raid, his offense involves a lot of throwing the ball downfield, and that's just not what Tom Brady's built to do. And until they make an adjustment, it's going to be hard for me to pick them against good teams, and the Chiefs certainly fall in that category. Give me the Chiefs.
I got to go with the Chiefs. I think the Bucs are just not in a great spot. The offense, teams are starting to figure out, and I just think the defense, they're having trouble getting pressure. I've actually been very impressed with the pieces that the Chiefs are filling in on with the offensive line, so I'm going to take the Chiefs. Next up, Bears at Packers.
Go, Pack, go.
Yep, Packers.
Yeah, the Bears have slid. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Weren't they 5-0 at one point?
They were 5-1.
That's really sad. Give me the Packers.
I'm going to take the Packers as well. Now, what a way to cap off this week. Seahawks in Philadelphia.
Well, I just said Birds.
Go Birds!
Yeah, Seahawks in this one when we're talking about Birds.
Yeah, rematch of these two teams playing in the wild card round last year. It's hard to take the Eagles right now. Seahawks coming off their mini bye seems too easy. Give me the Seahawks.
I don't know why there's any discussion here. Give me the Seahawks.
There's no discussion. Seahawks. There's no. Seahawks. Carson Wentz is not good.
Carson Wentz is a bust. Carson Wentz is a bust.
They won a Super Bowl, Pat.
With Nick Foles.
Okay.
Give me the Seahawks. Okay, that'll end our show for tonight. Everyone, thank you very much for sticking with us and watching. Enjoy the return of college basketball and this week's loaded week of sports. Happy Thanksgiving, and enjoy the rest of your week.